This episode begins with a high school girl named Tomo confessing to Jun that she loves him. Jun doesn't view her as a girl, but as one of the guys, so he assumes that she professed her love as a sign of brotherhood instead of romance. The next day, Tomo leaves home for school and Jun waits for her outside her house. They've always hung out together since they were younger. She is disturbed that Jun doesn't see her as a girl and treats her as he would treat a male friend. She recalls the first day of middle school where she arrived at school in a midi skirt. Jun made a strange comment about how rare it is to see guys wearing skirts, and he had been stunned to discover that she's a girl. In the present, Jun slaps Tomo's rear as she is stunned by this and immediately punches him. Later on, Tomo reveals that she's skilled at karate as they both train at her father's dojo. While in class, Tomo discusses her feelings for Jun with her female best friend Misuzu. Misuzu reveals she's been friends with Tomo and Jun for years, and she argues Tomo deserves to be treated like a boy since she always participated in boy-like activities. She suggests Tomo should try lowering her tone and sounding more girly. During the lunch break, Tomo meets up with Jun and tries to sound more girly, but Jun tells her she sounds like an elderly man. They get into a heated argument, leading to Tomo hitting Jun with one of her infamous punches. At home, Tomo meets her dad, who gets furious when he discovers bruises on her face. Tomo reveals she got into a fight with Jun. Her father is furious and claims she has brought dishonor to their family by losing. Tomo retaliates that she's a girl and that her father shouldn't have trained Jun to fight. The next morning, while Jun and Tomo walk to school, Jun apologizes for his actions the previous day. He also admits that his life would be boring without her around. While his words make Tomo blush, Tomo reveals that they go through this routine after every fight. She accepts his apology and they bump fists. At school, Tomo and Misuzu have lunch on the rooftop. Misuzu asks why Tomo is spending her lunch break with her instead of Jun, and Tomo admits it would make her look like she's dating Jun. Misuzu immediately leaves to join Jun to have lunch together, Tomo trailing reluctantly behind her. Jun isn't pleased to see Misuzu, but he is happy Tomo is joining him. The three have lunch together, and Tomo reveals Misuzu and Jun don't see eye to eye. Tomo feeds Jun some of her food, but she is suddenly conscious that her chopsticks had been in his mouth. Later that day, Jun's friend Tanabe approaches Jun. Tanabe asks him if he's ever made a move on Tomo and shares how much of a rocking body she must have. Misuzu hears them, and she heads up to the rooftop where she finds Tomo. Misuzu then lies to Tomo that Jun admitted to participating in sensual activities with Tomo to his friend Tanabe, when in fact he was only referring to them both partaking in martial arts. Misuzu's misinformation gets Tomo riled up so much that she ends up beating up Jun. Misuzu later meets up with Tanabe and tells him the truth about Tomo and Jun, revealing that she set Jun up. Misuzu calls Tanabe a scum for sensually thinking about Tomo, but Tanabe ignores her comments. He asks what he can do to date her, but Misuzu tells him to back off. Misuzu feels she's the only one who's allowed to toy with him. Misuzu meets up with Jun and talks about how they've grown distant. Jun admits they all used to get into some fun mischief as kids and that Misuzu would create extreme pranks, but whenever they get into trouble, Misuzu would never be around. Jun also says he doesn't like participating in school club activities because he finds it more fun learning karate at Tomo's house. He admits that boys and girls clubs were always separate, and it'd be no fun if Tomo wasn't with him. Misuzu asks Jun how he'd react if Tomo got a boyfriend, and Jun gets Jun upset. It is raining when Tomo arrives, and Jun asks her to walk home with him, but she asks Misuzu instead. Misuzu, however, makes Tomo walks home with Jun instead. Jun compliments Tomo on her scent, and she runs away from him in embarrassment. Meanwhile, Tanabe encounters Misuzu and asks her if she'd like to get under his umbrella since it is raining, but Misuzu suddenly takes his umbrella and walks away. Jun finds Tomo, but before he can say a word, he notices the rain has made her shirt see-through. He hands her the umbrella and runs away in embarrassment, leaving Tomo wondering what's wrong. The next scene starts with Tomo fighting someone during martial arts training. Her opponent compliments her for her looks and skills. Tomo kicks Misaki violently and apologizes for her actions after. Misaki asks her if she's gotten used to the boys' club, and she admits she's okay with being the only girl in class. Misaki offers to put in a good word for her if she ever wants to return to the girls' club. However, Tomo admits other female martial artists don't want to spar with her. Tomo says she's a failure as a girl, but Misaki reassures her that she's a charming girl. Tomo asks him what about her makes her look girly, but Misaki tells Tomo she only needs to improve her confidence. After school, some girls spot Misaki leaving and they fawn over him. Tomo comes out to join Misaki, and the girls assume that something is going on between the duo, so they plan on confronting her. The next day, Misuzu approaches Jun and tells him she noticed a boy walking with Tomo the other day. Later, Tomo arrives at class but forgets her textbook. She asks Jun if she can peep at his, and Jun asks her about the boy she's been hanging around with in karate class. Tomo informs Jun about Misaki, revealing how he is the captain of a karate club she's a part of. Tomo shows him a picture of her and Misaki, but Jun mistakes Misaki for a girl. He asks Tomo if she's closer to any other girls. Tomo says she's not, leading Jun to ask her how she feel if Misuzu got a boyfriend. Tomo admits she can't see Misuzu falling in love with anyone, but reveals she feels lonely without her. Tomo leaves class and gets approached by two girls named Mifune and Ogawa. They tell Tomo to meet her after school, but Tomo has a hunch that they're not looking to become friends. She intimidates them, causing Ogawa and Mifune to flee. Tomo informs Misuzu about her trouble with Ogawa and Mifune. Misuzu tells her that fighting girls in school wouldn't be ladylike. Misuzu suggests engaging in a verbal quarrel with them. Tomo meets with Mifune and Ogawa after school. Mifune reveals that they had a crush on Misaki and noticed Tomo hanging out with him. Tomo mistakes their words and thinks they came to her for love advice because she knows Misaki. Tomo says they should become her friends if they want to get close to Misaki. The girls unwillingly accept Tomo's offer. The next day, Tomo reports to Misuzu about what happened between her and the girls. She wonders if she has a ton of feminine appeal now. Jun butts in on their conversation and asks Tomo to attend the school store. The girls realize that Tomo is more ladylike than they expected. Later on, while Tomo and Jun are on a moving train, she feels self-conscious sitting next to him, so she stands up. Suddenly, a strange man starts groping Tomo from behind. Tomo wants to punch him, but she feels helpless. Jun notices this and calls the man out, and later on, Tomo reveals that Jun reported the guy to the authorities. Jun tells Tomo she shouldn't wear skirts anymore, and Tomo is furious when he suggests she wears male pants. The next day, Tomo tells Misuzu everything that happened, and Misuzu wishes she was with Tomo when the incident happened. In a flashback, Jun tells Tomo to wear slacks because skirts don't fit her. In the present, Misuzu tells Tomo that Jun might have phrased it like that because he doesn't want to see Tomo get groped again. Misuzu notices that Tomo had always worn shorts underneath her skirt, and she asks her to take them off for a while. Tomo is hesitant, but Misuzu convinces her. Later, Misuzu meets Jun and informs him that she knows what happened between him and Tomo. She also tells him that Tomo wants to walk home with him and is waiting downstairs. Tomo is shown holding down her skirt, and Jun's shocked to see her without her shorts. While they walk home, Tomo apologizes to Jun for hitting him. When they got onto a bus, Jun realizes is filled with men, and he gets worried about Tomo because she's no longer wearing shorts. Thankfully, nothing happens. On their way home, the wind suddenly picks up tension and blows Tomo's skirt up. Jun sees beneath her skirt and faints. Later on, Jun apologizes to Tomo because he believes it wasn't right for him to tell Tomo what she shouldn't wear. At gym class, Misuzu asks Tomo how everything went, and Tomo says it went wrong. She also asks Tomo if Jun saw her underwear, and Tomo says he dropped like a rock after. Later on, Jun invites Tomo to have lunch with him while Misuzu watches them from afar. The next scene reveals a new student, a girl named Carol Olston, who gets a lot of attention from male students. Tomo remarks on how Carol receives the same attention every day and wonders how she can achieve the same. Misuzu says that Carol's looks and English background make her appear admirable to boys. Also, she says her defenseless personality also does wonders. Tomo wonders if she should become friends with Carol to obtain knowledge from her. Suddenly, Misaki and Carol approach her, and he reveals that Carol's a distant relative of his and were close friends since they were little. Carol jokes about being engaged to Misaki, but he assures Tomo that she's kidding. Carol reveals she's not interested in any of the guys in their class. Tomo worries Carol thinks she's a guy despite her skirt. Carol also continuously calls Tomi dummy. Carol meets Misuzu during class. Misuzu makes it clear to Carol that she doesn't like her and doesn't plan to share anything dirty about her best friend. Carol bribes Misuzu with cake, and Misuzu offers to hear her out. Carol asks Misuzu for advice on defeating Tomo. Misuzu lies to Carol and tells her that there is someone else who'd be better suited to help her out. In the boys' locker room, Jun notices Carol inside a locker. They meet outside, and Carol asks Jun for ways to defeat an unnamed foe. She punches Jun to test her strength, and Jun's unfazed. He promises to make her strong within a month to take down her opponent. Jun picks up Carol during class, and Tomo notices. She asks Misuzu what's happening, and Misuzu suggests Carol and Jun might be a couple. Carol and Jun begin their training, and Tomo later discovers Jun and Carol hugging each other. Tomo grabs Jun and asks him what he's doing with Carol, but Carol watches and recalls Misuzu's words about sticking close to Jun to discover Tomo's weakness. Carol tells Tomo she's lost the battle and no longer wants to be her enemy. Carol departs and meets up with Misuzu. Carol and Misuzu arrive at a bake shop, and Carol asks Misuzu if they're friends now because she doesn't have any. Misuzu suggests Carol ask Tomo to be her friend. At school, Carol meets up with Tomo and tells her she wants to be her friend. Tomo gladly accepts Carol's offer. Misuzu also accepts Carol's friendship offer because she's rich. Tomo and Jun discuss Misaki and Carol, and he makes an offhand comment about Misuzu's looks angering Tomo. He tells Tomo he doesn't have a thing for Misuzu, but reveals he and Misuzu used to date in middle school. Tomo wonders why Misuzu and Jun never told her they were in a relationship in the past. At school, Tomo confronts Misuzu about it. Misuzu explains they only dated for 3 days and she didn't have feelings for him at the time. Misuzu also reveals that she agreed thinking it would be a fun time, but her romance with Jun dwindled after several cycling trips. She had reached her physical and mental limits and wanted to end the relationship. However, Jun beat her to it, leaving a permanent scar on her life. Misuzu assures Tomo that she has no more feelings for Jun and only has feelings of hatred toward him. Tomo is relieved. Later on, Misuzu confronts Jun about telling Tomo about their previous relationship. She wonders if Jun dumped her because he possibly developed feelings for Tomo. But Jun apologizes and says he'll take full responsibility for his actions. Later, as Jun and Tomo walk home, she asks him if he has any feelings toward anyone, but he makes it clear that he doesn't have any feelings for anyone. The next day, Misaki bumps into Tomo and Jun is surprised that Misaki is a guy. And when Misaki greets Jun knocks him on the head. This angers Tomo, who retaliates by punching Jun in the face. Jun apologizes for his actions and properly introduces himself. When Misaki tells him he likes participating in karate, Jun says they should have a sparring session sometime. As Jun and Tomo head to their lockers and discuss Tomo's relationship with Misaki, she explains what caused her to join the boys' karate club. After class, Tomo tells Jun that she can't walk home with him today because she promised to spend time with Misaki and Carol. Jun and Misaki wait at a bus stop together as Jun recalls Tomo telling him to work things out. On the bus, Misaki asks Jun if he's interested in joining the boys' club, and Jun says no. He says he can't beat Tomo and doesn't want to lose her. Jun admits he can only defeat her at her dad's dojo, but in a match with a rule set, he'd lose. Jun says he often gets into fistfights with Tomo, surprising Misaki because he believes he shouldn't fight girls. Jun admits Tomo likes taking fights seriously, and that if he can beat her contests of strength, it's due to his masculinity. Jun and Misaki also realize that they both look up to her. During karate practice, Misaki admits to Tomo that Jun didn't do anything to him. Tomo admits she attempted to introduce Jun to other men she knew, but they were intimidated by his presence. Tomo tells Misaki she wishes Jun would see her as a girl instead of a guy. Jun intervenes in their conversation and intimidates Misaki, but Tomo assumes they become great friends. The next scene starts at a diner with Mifune and Ogawa discussing Tomo's appearance behind her back. Misuzu and Tomo interrupt their conversation, startling them. They leave the diner and Tomo questions Misuzu about why they left so hastily, but Misuzu explains that it's because of the way Tomo's dressed. Misuzu asks Tomo if she's hung out with Jun lately, but Tomo admits they haven't been hanging out as much because she's becoming weirdly self-conscious. Misuzu warns her he might find someone else if she stops hanging out with him and also suggests Tomo should be the one to invite him out next time. During class, Tomo asks Jun if he'd like to go out with her during the break, and Jun is delighted by her offer and accepts. Tomo meets with Misuzu, who convinces her that her outing with Jun is a date. They'll be shopping with Carol to get Tomo some clothes for her date. At the clothes shop, Tomo's confused while Misuzu and Carol discuss what to get her. Misuzu suggests getting Tomo some slightly tomboyish clothing to prevent Jun from fleeing the date. Afterward, Tomo thanks Carol and Misuzu for their help, and Misuzu asks Tomo to report on what happens after her date with Jun. Tomo meets Jun for their date while wearing the clothes Misuzu and Carol got her, and Jun is slightly surprised at her appearance. They attend multiple locations from a training center to a bowling alley. Tomo asks Jun to accompany her to the karaoke room, and Jun asks Tomo to sing, but she refuses. Tomo eventually chooses a children's song and starts singing, and Jun records her on his phone without her realizing it. When she finishes up, she notices Jun giggling and yells at him. Back at school, Tomo tells Misuzu she sang children's songs for 3 hours despite Jun not participating. She also admits that she's embarrassed about the whole thing. Somewhere in the school, Jun wonders if he should delete the video. Misuzu and Carol ask to see the clip, but Tomo rushes them away. Jun rewatches the clip and notices something different about Tomo. Tanig wishes Misuzu would smile more, and Jun tells him that she always smiles when she's talking to him. Tomo is also surprised that Misuzu smiles. In class, Tanabe keeps pestering Misuzu. She tapes his mouth shut. When leaving the classroom, he walks past Carol, who also has her mouth taped shut. Carol and Tomo meet, and she tells Tomo that Misuzu taped her mouth because she attempted to kiss her. Tanabe and Misuzu meet again, and she asks him if he likes her. He tells her he does, and she then tells him to approach her seriously so she can shoot him down with a smile. Tomo asks Misuzu about how she only ever smiles around Jun and asks if she likes him. She says she doesn't like Jun but toys with the idea to get on Tomo's nerves. Later on, Tomo tells Misuzu that she wishes to hold hands and hug friends as most girls do. Tomo recalls she's tried being friendly with girls in the past, but girls acted weird around her. Misuzu reveals she and Tomo have been friends since birth because their mothers were childhood friends, but when Tomo says they've been friends long enough to hug, Misuzu refuses. Tomo hugs Carol instead, and she's amazed by how soft she is. After Tomo leaves school, she starts hugging other girls randomly to understand what it feels like to be girly. Tomo notices Misuzu is acting strange towards her and wonders if she's angry at her. Carol also wonders if she's to blame for Misuzu's behavior. She then apologizes for bothering Tomo, but Misuzu tells her not to worry. Misuzu reveals she's flustered about something else. Misuzu meets Tomo on the rooftop and apologizes for acting strange towards her. She tells Tomo she wouldn't mind trying to hug Tomo. Tomo hugs Misuzu, and Misuzu suggests she should try hugging Jun. Tomo sneaks up on Jun and hugs him after school. He's stunned and he tells her to stop. They get into a heated argument, resulting in Tomo beating Jun up. At home, Jun wakes Tomo up, resulting in bickering and fighting between the two. They have breakfast with Tomo's mother Akemi, and she reveals interesting tidbits about her husband. Tomo's father faints when he sees his wife and prefers eating alone at work. They visit Tomo's father, Goro, and he scolds them for being late to martial arts practice, but he faints immediately after Akemi appears behind them. At school, Tomo meets with Carol and Misuzu. Carol explains she and Misuzu will be spending time alone during lunch because she needs some advice. Misuzu suggests it is a chance for Tomo to eat lunch with Jun. Carol places her headband on Tomo's head, and she and Misuzu leaves. Jun and Tomo eat lunch together, catching the attention of other girls in their class while Carol and Misuzu enjoy their lunch on the rooftop. Misaki meets the girls at the rooftop. He tells Misuzu that Carol's an important person to him and asks if she can look out for her. After he leaves, Carol reveals she's interested in Misaki. Misuzu notices that Misaki doesn't see Carol as a girl, and she tells Carol to take life more seriously if she hopes to win him over. Later on, Mifune calls Tomo over for some help, and she reveals that Ogawa met a gangster at a mixer who had asked her out. Ogawa wants to turn him down, but rumors say that he bullies girls who turn him down. Tomo, Mifune, and Ogawa meet the guy, and Tomo tells him off, but Ogawa mocks her. Tomo gives Ogawa a serious pummeling and he scurries away. Later on, Ogawa meets with his goons and asks them to jump Tomo, but his boys laugh at him for getting beaten. Jun overhears their conversation and gives them a thorough beating, and Tomo is surprised when Ogawa and his goons apologize to her. Tomo and Misuzu arrive at Carol's place to hang out. Carol's mother sees Tomo's shoes at the front gate and assumes it belongs to a boy. But when she walks in, she is surprised to see Tomo as a girl. Carol takes her friends to her room, and Tomo is astounded by all the nice stuff scattered around, but Misuzu reminds her that Carol is rich. Misuzu excuses herself to use the bathroom, but she is stopped by Carol's mother. While heading for the toilet, Carol's mother asks Misuzu if she's a bad person, because she noticed she's been treating Carol poorly. Misuzu asks Carol's mother how she feels if Misuzu only wanted to be friends with Carol for her money, and Carol's mother laughs, but this makes her feel weird. Afterward, Tomo and Misuzu challenge Carol to a fellow, and they both lose to her. As they get ready to leave, Carol's mother hugs Misuzu and Tomo and tells them to come around anytime. A few days later, Tomo and Misuzu plan to hold a study group to prepare for their midterms. Carol asks to join them and Misuzu accepts. Jun asks Tomo if he'd like to study with him, but Misuzu reveals she is the top student in their class, so Tomo denies his offer. Tomo is surprised that Misuzu didn't try to get her and Jun together like she always does, and Misuzu claims she should be allowed to do so when she feels like it. Carol, Misuzu, and Tomo arrive at Misuzu's house. Tomo tells Carol that she hasn't been invited to Misuzu's place since they were kids, and Misuzu reveals it's because she always breaks things when they were kids. Misuzu's mom walks into the room and mistakes Tomo for her mother, Akemi. She's not so thrilled about Carol and shares a similar feeling for her as Misuzu. In Misuzu's room, they try practicing equations through her method. However, Carol surprises the two by solving the equation more simplistically. Tomo's astounded by Carol's intellect, infuriating Misuzu. Misuzu butts in on their celebration and says showing one's work is significant in earning credit. As they continue, Tomo and Carol compliment Misuzu on her knowledge. Tomo says if Misuzu can keep teaching her her ways, she may be able to attend the same university as her. This shocks Misuzu because she thought Tomo would want to attend the same university as Jun. Carol also asks if she could attend the same college as Misuzu, and Misuzu agrees reluctantly. After midterms, everyone checks their scores. Tomo ranked number 70, while Misuzu and Carol ranked number 2 and 1 respectively. Jun asks Tomo to visit his place to play video games. Tomo accepts and meets up with Misuzu and Carol to discuss her worries for the night. Although she decides to tell Jun that she can't go, Misuzu and Carol reassure her that it's best to go. After school, Jun asks Tomo to walk home with him, but Tomo says she's walking with Misuzu and Carol. At home, Tomo tells her parents that she's staying at Jun's place for the night, but she is surprised they both show no concern. When she gets to Jin's house, he tells her that his mother won't be home tonight and that they'll be home alone. They eat Jun's curry together, and after they finish, they take their bath and play video games. Tomo loses each time and mocks Jun for being a gamer kid in the past. They get into a hassle, which leads to an intimate situation, but they later head to bed early for the night. In bed, Jun tells Tomo that he had a lot of fun and wonders if they'll have more experiences like this in the future. Tomo sleeps on the bed while Jun lay on a futon on the floor. She considers confessing her feelings to Jun, but he falls asleep immediately. Tomo leaves the bed to the futon and inspects Jun's facial features, but Jun grabs Tomo in a sleepy haze and cuddles her. The next morning, he wakes up to find Tomo sleeping next to him, and he freaks out. Tomo wakes up alone, and as she leaves, she wonders what happened between her and Jun. Tomo later reveals that her relationship with Jun has changed drastically since their gaming session. On Tomo's birthday, Jun gives her a pair of glasses, but she taunts him since she's now older than him. At school, Tomo shows off her glasses to Misuzu and also taunts Misuzu about her age. It's revealed that this is an annual routine of Tomo boasting about being older than her friends. Misuzu gives Tomo reference books for her birthday while Carol hands her a gold brick. Misuzu asks Tomo if she'd like to head to her place this weekend to hang out with her and Carol. The weekend arrives and Misuzu and Carol reveal they intend to make Tomo look more feminine by giving her a makeover. They apply some makeup to her face and give her a new skirt and wig. Once she's dressed up, Misuzu tells Tomo to try sounding like a girl. When she does, Misuzu approves of her tone and comments boys will like it. They also force Tomo to get them ice cream while dressed in the outfit. At the store, Tomo catches every male's attention and spots Jun. She attempts to flee the store with the goods but trips and falls. Jun wonders if the girl is Tomo, but he discards the thought since he knows Tomo never wears makeup or girly clothes. He helps her up and they walk together. On their way, they spot some kids playing soccer and sit on the field to observe them. Jun points out a boy and a girl in the field and asks Tomo what she thinks of their future. Tomo claims it'd be cool if they became a couple, and Jun tells Tomo the girl reminds him of his best friend. Tomo asks Jun what his friend's future will turn out like. He tells her he's unsure but knows he wants to defeat her at something. Tomo arrives at Misuzu's place and discovers they plan to surprise her with a birthday celebration. They eat cake, and Tomo explains her interaction with Jun. Jun arrives at Tomo's house the following day and grabs her cheeks, but Tomo punches him, and this helped Jun conclude the woman he was with wasn't Tomo. Tomo's presence instills fear into her female classmates because of the upcoming ball sports tournament. Misuzu further reveals that Tomo always gets pumped before athletic events. Later on, the coach announces Tomo will play on the boys' dodgeball team at the ball sports tournament due to undisclosed reasons. The ball sports tournament begins. Tomo and Jun realize they're playing against a bully. Tomo and Jun's team score an overwhelming victory over many teams in the tournament. While Jun and Tomo warm up before the finals, Tanabe warns them about their final opponent's team having a gorilla-like player. Jun knows he's referring to Goma Takaru, a third year in the judo club, and the strongest kid in the school. Despite Tanabe's worries, Jun and Tomo are excited to face Goma. Meanwhile, Misuzu and Carol discuss their loss in the volleyball tournament. They plan to watch Tomo play, but in the final round, Goma tells Tomo he's disappointed by her weak appearance. However, he's more interested in Jun. Goma makes Jun an offer. If he wins, Jun must join the judo club. Jun accepts the deal but doesn't know what he should wager. Meanwhile, Tanabe notices Misuzu watching the game. Although he wants to impress her, Tanabe gets eliminated. Goma eliminates more players on Tomo's team and goes for her next, but Jun gets in the way and gets eliminated. This fires Tomo up, and she vows to put everything she has into her final throw to eliminate Goma. Although the ball doesn't hit Goma, Tomo passes it to Jun to have him eliminate Goma from the sidelines. However, Tanabe catches it instead and throws it at Goma while he's puzzled. In the end, Jun and Tomo's team win the sports tournament. After celebrating with her team, Tomo meets up with Misuzu and Carol. Tomo tells them she enjoyed playing dodgeball with Jun and hopes their future relationship will be the same. Jun and Goma have some one-on-one sparring sessions. Although Jun defeats Goma in their first session, Goma secures multiple victories over him. Jun tells Goma that his urge to defeat someone close to him pushes him to attain more strength. Tomo and Jun walk home together, and Jun tells Tomo he lost to Goma numerous times. He feels she could beat him, and Tomo acknowledges Jun usually overestimates her too much. Jun reveals he wants to be more like Tomo. A flashback reveals when Tomo and Jun first met each other as kids. Tomo notices Jun playing with a game system and accidentally breaks it. Jun is pissed about this and punches Tomo in the face, and they eventually introduce themselves. Later that day, Tomo returns to Jun's place with her father to apologize further. Jun is weirded out by Tomo and her family, but with time, Tomo and Jun become friends. After playing together for a while, Tomo introduces Jun to Misuzu and asks if she can play with them. Misuzu doesn't give the best introductions to Jun, but he allows her to play with them. The three go bug catching in the forest, and Jun forms a rivalry with Misuzu as they compete for Tomo's attention while trying to catch the best rhinoceros beetle. Tomo acknowledges Jun's beetle and notices he's starting to smile more. Jun is brought out of his reverie, and he admits that he had started adapting to Tomo's strange activities with time. It also made him feel like he was getting stronger. Jun recalls how his game system was stolen by bullies and how he refused to tell Misuzu and Tomo the truth. However, Tomo catches on and retrieves Jun's game system from the bullies. She returns to Jun's house to hand it back to him, but he's upset that she went to confront the bullies alone. The two wrestle with each other. Tomo doesn't know that Jun's upset because he knows he can't protect her in similar situations. He lets Tomo borrow the game system and asks her not to return it until he proves he's a stronger man than her. This prompts Jun to take lessons from Tomo's father. In the present, Tomo plays Jun's gaming system, and she wonders when he'll take it back since she feels he's gotten stronger than her. Tomo, Misuzu, Jun, and Carol visit the beach for summer break. Misuzu didn't want to attend the trip at first, but Carol convinces her to come to see Jun's reaction to Tomo wearing a swimsuit. At the portable toilets, Jun waits for the girls to put on their swimsuits. Carol and Misuzu ask him why he's looking up, and he says he's waiting for Tomo. Tomo refuses to come out, but Jun drags her out, and he gets embarrassed immediately after he sees her. Tomo and Carol rush to the ocean while Misuzu and Jun sit on the beach. Tomo grabs Jun and tells him to play with her, but Jun tells Tomo to stop clinging onto him. Misuzu notices Tomo has stopped worrying about the swimsuit and she's having too much fun to be self-conscious. Carol clings onto Jun and Tomo throws some rocks at both of them immediately after she sees them. Later on, Carol sits next to Misuzu and wonders why Jun doesn't want to be near them on the beach. Misuzu says it's because Jun's weary of Carol and Tomo's cleavage. A boy at the beach tries pulling Tomo aside to get quirky with her, but Jun steps in and tells him to back off. Jun apologizes to Tomo because he feels he shouldn't have butted in. However, when Carol calls for help, Jun has no qualms with the boys thinking he's her boyfriend, surprising Tomo. Tomo complains to Misuzu, who advises her to stay within Jun's line of sight for the remainder of the day. After getting ice cream, Tomo and Jun rush into the ocean. Jun ponders why he's starting to feel strange around Tomo today. On a bus, Jun and Misuzu talk about what happened at the beach, and Misuzu confirms that Jun doesn't see Tomo as anything but a girl anymore. Later on, Tomo, Misuzu, and Carol play the king game. Misuzu becomes the king and tells Tomo she must attend the summer festival with Jun alone, startling her. Tomo arrives at Jun's house and asks him to attend the summer festival with her. He accepts her offer but doesn't show much enthusiasm. After Tomo and her friends leave his room, Jun reveals he's excited to spend alone time with Tomo at the summer festival, but he questions Tomo's romantic confession from earlier. Meanwhile, Tomo and Misuzu endure inner conflicts regarding Tomo and Jun's futures. In the morning, Jun heads for the festival. At the same time, Carol asks Misuzu to go to the festival with her and Misaki because she doesn't want Misuzu to feel lonely. Jun arrives before Tomo and he is surprised to see her in feminine attire. At the festival, they indulge in some activities. Some vendors notice Tomo and pass the word around because she was known to cause mass mayhem at the event during her younger years. Misuzu, Carol, and Misaki arrive at the festival soon after and start exploring. Some men try to flirt with Tomo, but Jun pulls her away from them. Tomo thanks Jun for his help, and Jun acts weirdly. They head up to the highest balcony to prepare for the fireworks. Misuzu notices Tomo and Jun from afar off, but Carol pulls her aside. Misuzu realizes Carol brought her along so she can't interfere with Tomo and Jun's romantic moment. Before the fireworks go off, Tomo hesitates to tell Jun how she feels about him. She questions if it's okay to break what they have now. They watch the fireworks and head home. Tomo tells Jun they should do this again in the future. Jun is confused about his newfound feelings for Tomo as he fears he'll never have a solid punching match with her again. After the summer break, Tomo and her friends are seen on the school rooftop. She tells them since the new terms began, Jun's acting more cautious around her. Tomo heads for class, leaving Misuzu and Carol behind. In class, Misuzu ponders what life will be like once Tomo and Jun become lovers. After school, a bully and his buddies harass Misuzu. They drag her away from the open, but Carol shows up and defends Misuzu by tasing the bully. Carol and Misuzu flee to an abandoned factory to hide from them. Misuzu calls Jun to let him know about their situation and asks him not to tell Tomo. He hangs up and proceeds to the abandoned factory, but Tomo stops him. He tells Tomo what's happening and she insists on helping him find Carol and Misuzu. Meanwhile, Misaki overhears their conversation and is worried about Carol. While discussing their friendship, the bully finds Misuzu and Carol, but before he can make a move, Tomo stops him. Jun and Tomo proceed to beat up the bully and his goons. At the same time, Misaki finds Carol and Misuzu. After seeing Carol undressed and dirtied, Misaki's infuriated. Before Tomo and Jun can deliver a beating to the bully, Misaki stops them because he wants to make him suffer. Carol tells Misaki it was a misunderstanding, calming him down. Misuzu asks Tomo and Jun to leave so she can discuss things with the bully. After they leave, Misuzu intimidates the bully and warns him never to bother them again. Misaki is seen reminiscing about how he couldn't make any friends as a kid because of his gloomy and sullen nature, but his personality changes for the better after his mom introduces him to Carol, whom she describes as an angel. At present, Misaki is seen in the dojo of Tomo's father. Misaki tells Tomo's father that he would love to train under him, but Tomo's dad tells him that he is weak. However, he agrees to train him because he senses an evil spirit in him. Misaki is unable to perform any of the exercises that Tomo and Jun perform and almost faints after being asked to push up while carrying Tomo's father. Later on, Tomo's father asks Misaki to duel with Jun, and Misaki informs Jun of his intentions to impress Tomo. Jun becomes jealous and enraged by this as he sees Misaki as a threat. Misaki is determined to impress Tomo at all costs as he swings straight for Misaki without defending himself, but Jun aims straight for his midsection and sends Misaki crouching in pain. Misaki passes out due to the impact of the blow, and he wakes up in Tomo's room. He is surprised to see Tomo beside him, and Tomo informs him that he's in her room and practice had ended a while back. She also asks if he had picked up an interest in karate to protect Carol. Misaki tells Tomo that he had always wanted to protect Carol, but Carol is much stronger than him and he would like to be able to protect her someday. But unknown to them, Jun eavesdrops on their conversation and feels bad for punching Misaki. The following day, while Misaki and Carol walk to school together, Misaki tells her about how Tomo's dad's dojo is amazing, and he reveals that Tomo is a woman that he admires. Carol stares at him worriedly and wonders if Misaki likes Tomo. Later that day, Carol walks up to Jun and persuades him to hang out with her. Jun asks why she's not hanging out with Misaki, Tomo, or Misuzu, but Carol tells him that she's currently quarreling with all of them. After a while, Carol asks Jun to escort her back home, but Jun instantly refuses. However, he realizes that Carol is in an unusually sad mood, so he gives in to her request. At Carol's home, she tells Jun that he's partially responsible for her frustrations, and she plans on venting them out on him. Carol moves closer to Jun and tries becoming sexually intimate with him, but Jun freaks out and runs out of the room. He runs into Tomo and hugs her while asking her to protect him as soon as Carol appears. Tomo is surprised by this, and she asks what could have possibly scared a strong man like Jun, but Carol says nothing and bids them goodbye. The following day, Carol tells Misaki that she had spent the entirety of the previous day with Jun. She also reveals that they had shared some intimate moments within the confines of a room, and Misaki displays jealousy. Carol is so excited by the new developments that she tells Misuzu about this and thanks her. She also reveals that if Misaki had gotten jealous at the thought of her being alone with another man, he likes her. Misuzu promises Carol that she'll get Misaki to ask her out, and Carol tries pecking her on the cheeks to show her gratitude, but Misuzu pushes her away. Later on, Misuzu approaches Misaki and asks him if he loves Carol. Misaki is stunned that his feelings are so apparent, and he asks how she at first suspected it, but Misuzu tells Misaki that the rampage he had caused in the factory the other day had made it apparent. Misuzu asks Misaki why he had not yet confessed his feelings to her, and Misaki reveals that Carol had always been a very light-spirited person, and he was scared that if he confessed his feelings, she would take it like any other news. Misuzu realizes that Misaki was right about Carol putting on a facade, so she promises to give him a chance to see Carol in a vulnerable state. Misaki panics and tries convincing Misuzu against it, but Misuzu's mind is all made up. After Misuzu returns to class, Carol approaches her and tells her that she had seen her speaking with Misaki. She goes on to ask if Misaki had confessed his feelings for her, but Misuzu tells her that Misaki doesn't like her romantically. Carol bursts into tears and runs out of the class, but she runs into Jun and Tomo, who are surprised to see Carol in tears. Misuzu rushes to Misaki's class and tells him to rush over to Carol's side and comfort her. Misaki rushes over to Carol's class in search of her, but he discovers that Carol had already left the school's premises. Misaki leaves for Carol's home, but after ringing the doorbell, Carol's mother answers him and scolds him before letting him in. Misaki knocks on Carol's door, but she doesn't reply instantly. After waiting for a while, Misaki enters Carol's room and he's surprised to see her in tears, especially since Carol was always in a good mood. He tries comforting her, but Carol thrashes him with her pillow. Misaki waits till Carol calms down before revealing that Misuzu had lied to her about his true feelings, but it was only because she had been trying to get him to confess to her. Misaki tells Carol that he's in love with her, and Carol reveals that she feels the same way. She tries instigating physical contact, but her mother enters the room and saves Misaki from her twitching hands. Before he leaves, Carol's mother tells Misaki that the only reason why Carol was always wearing a smile on her face is that when Carol was much younger, she had asked her to smile more. After all, it makes her look cuter. She further reveals that although she had only told her that to keep her from crying, Carol had stopped crying from that day. Later on, Tomo's school holds a running competition, and Tomo and Jun make bets on who will emerge as the winner. The race starts and Tomo and Jun run several miles ahead of their peers. They are followed by Misaki, who has gotten much stronger after joining Tomo's dad's dojo. Tomo sees a sign ahead telling girls to turn back at a certain point, but to Jun's surprise, she races on determined to compete against him at all costs. On their way back to the finish line, Tomo suddenly falls forward and faints. Jun jerks her awake and realizes that she has a fever, and Tomo reveals that she had run for hours after dinner the previous day before sleeping naked. Jun realizes that Tomo has a cold, and he gives her a piggyback ride while completing the rest of the race. After Tomo wakes up, she's surprised to see Misuzu worried over her, and Misuzu reveals that she had scared everyone because she was rarely ever sick. She also reveals that Jun had been so eager to get her to a hospital that he had ended up winning first place while carrying her on his back. Jun appears by the doorway and asks Tomo if she's feeling much better, but Misuzu whispers to Tomo that she rarely ever falls sick, so she had better use this situation to her advantage. After Misuzu leaves, Tomo demands that Jun give her a piggyback ride to her home, and Jun backs her. Misuzu tells Jun that he has grown stronger and bigger since their childhood, and Jun feels the pressure of Misuzu's chest on his back, so he tells her the same. Later on, Jun recalls how he had mistaken Tomo for a boy up until middle school. He also recalls that she had told some girls that there was no way they could date. Jun had felt downcast for a long while afterward, but things got worse after he saw her talking to some guys later on. He had been so overtaken by jealousy that he ignored her and didn't speak to her for an entire year. As time passed by, Jun had gotten so embarrassed that he didn't know how to speak to her, but Misuzu, their childhood friend, had approached him and asked him to reach out to her because Tomo would surely forgive him. He also recalls how he had asked Misuzu to go out with him because he wanted to know what it would be like to go out with a friend, but things don't work out with Misuzu, as Misuzu has little or no interest in the strength-dominated sports that he often engages in with Tomo. To Misuzu's surprise, right when she considers breaking up with him, Jun breaks up with her on the third day after the start of their relationship, and Jun approaches Misuzu after classes and asks if he can hang out with her. On their way back home, Tomo punches Jun in the guts and asks why he didn't speak with her for a whole year, but Jun reveals that he was scared that she would be embarrassed of people thinking they were dating. Tomo tells him that other people's opinions don't matter and they could hang out if he wants to hang out with her. Jun tells Tomo that he would love to hang out with her forever, and they make up. Jun breaks out of his thoughts and carries Jun out of the school's hospital, but on their way to Tomo's house, Tomo's mom arrives and takes her home. Later on, Tomo tells Misuzu that Jun's birthday is approaching and she doesn't have money to get him anything. She also tells her of her interest in getting a part-time job, and Misuzu volunteers to work with her to keep her in check. Carol asks if she can also join in, and Misuzu hesitantly agrees. Tanabe, a classmate of theirs and a guy who had an unrequited crush on Misuzu, overhears their conversation and offers them jobs at his father's restaurant. At Tanabe's dad's restaurant, they are given aprons to wear, and Tomo feels self-conscious in the outfit as it emphasizes her feminine side. They get to work, and Misuzu surprises Tomo and Carol with her incredible skills as a waitress. Later on, Jun arrives and orders noodles, and he's stunned to see Tomo in an apron. Tomo asks Jun why he's not making fun of her outfit, but he tells her that she looks good in it. A few weeks later, Tomo, Misuzu, and Carol end their shift in the restaurant, and Tanabe's father tips them generously for bringing in more customers. After they step out, Tomo sees Jun waiting for her by a corner, and she remarks on how he kept on returning to the restaurant every day. To her surprise, Jun reveals that he had only visited because she was there, and Misuzu and Carol share a meaningful look before leaving them to walk back home on their own. Later on, Tomo gifts Jun a wristwatch for his birthday gift, and she reveals that she had bought one for herself so they could match. The following day, Tomo asks Misuzu to help her make Jun see her as a girl, and Misuzu comes up with a foolproof plan. She tells Tomo that the fastest way is through physical contact, and she asks Tomo to stand by the foot of the school's stairs. Jun walks by shortly after, and Misuzu pushes him down the stairs. Jun realizes that he's about to land directly on Tomo's chest, so he twists to avoid her, but he ends up landing on Carol's chest. Tomo is angered by this, and she smacks Jun repeatedly while he apologizes. Meanwhile, Misuzu feels downcast that she has failed Tomo and starts avoiding her, even going on to skip school for a couple of days. Tomo visits Misuzu to check up on her, but Misuzu tries chasing her off because she believes that she is not worthy to be her friend. Before leaving, Tomo leaves some supplements for her before dropping a book that contained the script for their school play. Before leaving, Tomo tells Misuzu that was cast in the play, and the next day, Misuzu arrives at school with a murderous expression on her face and asks who suggested that she's cast as Cinderella. Carol reveals that she had done so, and Misuzu attempts to thrash her, but Tomo keeps her away while reminding her that she had been cast as the prince despite being a female. Misuzu becomes more agitated after realizing that Carol is her stepmother, and Carol takes special pleasure in acting her part. After school, Tomo convinces Jun to help her out with her lines, and she teases him as he reads the lines of Cinderella. On the day of the school play, the mothers of Misuzu, Carol, and Tomo watch their daughters together and laugh at the fact that Misuzu looks like anything but a pitiful Cinderella. Meanwhile, all the ladies at the event fawn over Tomo as she looks like a handsome prince. After the event, many girls try to dance with Tomo, but Jun steals her away and asks her to dance. While they dance, Tomo teases Jun about asking her for a dance in public as it might make others form a bad opinion of them. But Jun tells her that they wouldn't be forming a bad opinion. Tomo realizes that Jun was subtly confessing his feelings, but she is hurt by this as she had recently started considering forgetting her feelings for Jun and staying friends with him for life. Tomo starts avoiding Jun for the next few weeks, and Jun decides to call her out. He sends her an anonymous letter where he challenges her to a duel on the rooftop, and Tomo is surprised when she discovers that her anonymous challenger is Jun. Jun confesses his feelings for Tomo, and he reveals that he had always known that Tomo had liked him, especially after she confessed her feelings in middle school, but he had downplayed it because he didn't know how to react. Tomo punches Jun in anger before dashing down the stairs. She runs over to Carol and Misuzu and tells them that Jun had always been aware of her feelings, but he had chosen not to do a thing. She also reveals that he had told her that he likes her, but she had run away. Carol asks why they couldn't just patch things up and become a couple, and Tomo runs over to meet Jun after school. She tells him that she loves him too, and the two walk home together while holding hands. Chapter 13. Later on, Misuzu comments on how Jun was taking too kindly to Tomo walking back home with her and Carol after school, and Jun tells them that he wants to be the kind of boyfriend that Misuzu is proud of, not an over-controlling or overprotective jerk. Misuzu and Carol hit him repeatedly for being so good with words, while Tomo blushes in a corner. Later on, Misuzu convinces Tomo to go out on a romantic movie date with Jun, and Tomo gives in. She hopes to goad Jun into kissing her while they watch the movie, but the scene gets way more intimate than she's prepared for, and she turns away while Jun watches with rapt attention. After the date, Tomo offers to follow Jun back home, and Jun is surprised by this, but he reluctantly agrees. At Jun's home, Tomo is surprised when Jun doesn't touch her, and she asks if she doesn't have any feminine allure, but Jun tells her that he fights himself every day to keep his hands off her, especially since their relationship was not official. Tomo is stunned to hear that their relationship is not official, and Jun reveals that her father had told him that he would not approve of their relationship until Jun defeats him. Tomo runs home and tells her father she hates him, and her father is disheartened by this, but he decides to see the battle till the end. The following day, Jun appears at Tomo's home and challenges Tomo's father with a punch. Tomo's father hits him with punch after punch, but Jun gains an advantage when Tomo's mother appears and her father is struck by the lovesick syndrome. Tomo cheers Jun on and promises that she'll beat up her father if he doesn't win, and Jun is motivated by this. Tomo's mother forces her husband to accept defeat, and after he reluctantly agrees, Tomo drags Jun out and kisses him, and they make declarations of love to each other.